The Silver Crown by Robert C. O'Brien, Chapter 23, The Screen. Ellen thought, well, at least they're polite. They knock before they enter. "Who is it?" she said. "May I come in?" It was a man's voice, very friendly. "That's Brother Michael," whispered Genevieve. "He's nice. He's from the King's Tower." "Come in," said Ellen dubiously, opening the door. How could he be nice if he worked here? Yet he was, at any rate, he seemed to be, which is not necessarily the same thing. He was not surprised to see Genevieve in the room. "Hello, Jenny," he said. Then he turned to Ellen. "I'm Brother Michael, and I don't even know your name." Ellen, she started to tell her full name, and then thought better of it. Why should she? "Ellen Jones," she said. The man had a pleasant smile, though perhaps a bit too bland and ready, and a round, red, good-natured face. But the oddest thing was, he dressed like a monk, in a black robe, with a long skirt that hid his shoes, and even a medieval bald pate with a fringe of hair cut in a circle around it. But the rope around his middle was a shimmering green, and there were narrow green stripes like an admiral's around the edge of his long black sleeves. He was part of the organization, all right, despite his kindly smile. "Well, Ellen," he said with a wink, I hear you don't think much of our Aesop's fables." "No," she said. She did not know whether to be polite or defiant. "Also, that despite the precautions of our two best drivers, you managed to stow away on our bus, then persist in denying that you could have. They persist in denying that you could have, which is stupid of them, since, after all, here you are." "Oh, but Ellen started to explain, and then again changed her mind. If they thought she had come on the bus, let them. The less they knew, the better. "Don't worry your head about it," said Brother Michael. He chuckled. "You fooled them, and you fooled us. But we're glad to have you. Believe me, we're delighted." "Why?" "Well, now," said Brother Michael, becoming just a shade evasive, "I can't explain everything at once, but put it this way. Some of the hardest-won recruits make the best soldiers." "Soldiers?" "Just my way of speaking. But we are, you see, training a sort of army. We're trying to make a soldier out of Jenny here." He chucked Jenny under the chin. "You haven't told her much about our plans?" "No, sir," said Jenny. "I didn't have time." "Good," said Brother Michael. "Then I can tell her as we go, and maybe show her a few things. I'll bet she'd enjoy a look at advanced demolition, eh?" "Oh, yes, sir," said Jenny into Ellen. "It's very exciting." Brother Michael looked at his watch. "They should be starting the arson lesson in 10 minutes. Let's go." Ellen said warily, "Where are we going?" "To the tower. But we can take a quick look at a few things on the way." Ellen did not want to go. She did not trust anyone here, including Jenny and Brother Michael, and what awaited her in the tower. But she did not want to stay here either. If she was to escape from this place and rescue Otto, she had to learn her way around it. So, when Brother Michael opened the door, she went out and followed him nervously down the hall. 5 or 6 corridors and several flights of stairs later, they paused outside a door. From the other side came the thud of an explosion. "Ah, just in time," said Brother Michael, who was breathing hard from the walk. He rang a bell before entering, a wise precaution, judging by the noise. They entered a very large room, acrid with smoke. Staring at them, a knot of tall boys in black, they looked 15, 16, and 17 years old, stood around a gaunt man, whose familiar face made Ellen turn immediately and try to run. She knew him. It was the stranger, and the door had closed behind them, and Brother Michael caught her easily by the arm. "Don't be afraid," he said. "That's Captain Julio. He is one of the most skillful arson teachers we have." And he called out, "Proceed, Captain. We're not here to interrupt, merely to observe." He whispered to Ellen, "I know he looks fearful, but he won't hurt you." Captain Julio scarcely glanced at Ellen. He turned back to his work, and Ellen realized to her relief that he did not recognize her. Of course, he had never actually seen either her or Otto. The boys watched while the captain filled a bottle, an ordinary green ginger ale bottle, with clear fluid from a metal tank. At the far end of the room, which was as big as a basketball court, stood a mock-up of a brick house. That is, there was the front of the house, but no back or sides and no roof. There were empty windows and a gaping doorway. The captain handed the filled bottle to one of the boys. The boy set the bottle instantly and efficiently between his feet, ripped a strip of cloth from a sheet lying on the floor, rolled the cloth into a plug, upending the bottle, and applied a match, then hurled the fiery missile flame forward, spinning like a football at the house. A Molotov cocktail. It arched neatly through the lower right front window, then came a thump of explosion and flames billowed gorgeously out of all the windows and the door. Ellen had to admit, in a gruesome way, it was exciting. "Beautiful!" said Brother Michael loudly. Captain Julio gave him a glare of pure contempt and filled the next bottle. "He's not very friendly," whispered Brother Michael, steering Ellen out of the door. "But results count. Every boy in that group is ready for Chicago next week." "What will they do in Chicago?" Brother Michael looked at her reproachfully. "You haven't been reading the newspapers this summer." No, that was true. "More than 300 killed so far, and there isn't a decent citizen in the city who will stick his head out after dark. $8 million damage, and our boys are doing it. Not alone, of course, but ours are trained. They teach the others." "You mean race riots?" "Race riots, juvenile gang fights, rumbles, motorcycle rallies, looting, fires, bombs, snipers, whatever it is, we're there. And the police. They lock the doors of their squad cars and they don't get out. Our Kill the Cop course is the best series we have. Naturally, since the king teaches it personally. I don't mean just methodology. I mean motivationally, too. When our boys see a uniform, well, it's remarkable, especially when you consider that they learn entirely on dummies." "On dummies!" Ellen exclaimed, struck by a memory. "Well, it's hard to get real policemen to practice on." I can imagine. In the past 90 seconds, it had dawned on Ellen that, nice though he might seem, Brother Michael was quite mad. They were walking along a corridor again, and he took another look at his watch. "We have time for just a look at the crafts department before we go to the tower. I've got to get you back to your room in time for supper." He opened another door. This was a trade school class, a workshop. Boys were hammering, cutting pipes with hacksaws, planting wood, boring holes, grinding metal with whirring carborundine stones. It looked at first sane. Then she saw what the end product was. In every case, a deadly weapon of some sort. Homemade knives with long, vicious blades. Homemade bombs of tampered pipes. Heavy, blunt pistols with pipe barrels. "Not very satisfactory," murmured Brother Michael, "but better than nothing. There's all this talk about restricting firearms, you know. We have to be ready. But look at this." Two boys were at work with chisels, drills, sandpaper on yard-long stalks of hollow bamboo. To these they were fitting little tufted darts tipped with needle points. "An experiment," said Brother Michael. "A little idea of my own. Blowguns. They're quite cheap. Easy to make. In the chemistry shop just down the hall there, they're getting to work on curare. Other kinds of venom too, of course. Black Widow has great possibilities. I know it's pretty far out, but you never know till you try." "It doesn't seem so far out to me," Ellen said, playing along, and Brother Michael was tremendously pleased. "Do you think so? Would you like to volunteer for blowgun training? I could arrange it. You'd be the first girl in weapons." "We're just starting with girls, you know," he sighed. "But I guess that's premature. We've got to get you in tune first. We better go on." As they went on, Ellen ventured one question. It had been puzzling her since she first entered the castle. "Where do all the children come from?" "Our recruits? Ah, now you're asking secrets. But I'll give you a hint. It's amazing. Deplorable, really, how careless people are about children. A school burns down, a school bus wrecks, an orphanage blows up. 36 killed, the headlines say. But were there really 36 killed? Or were there perhaps only 30 killed and 6 they just couldn't find? 5 missing, the newspaper said. Do they know what missing means? It means we've got 5 new recruits. How many children disappear in a year from a Harlem tenement block? Take my word from it, recruits are not hard to come by. Competent teachers now are something else again, but I won't go into that." So Ellen thought these were just ordinary children who had bad luck to fall into the wrong hands. Or was it bad luck? She had a horrible thought. "A school burns down," Brother Michael had said, or "an orphanage blows up." She thought of the advanced demolition class. Could it be? She did not dare to ask. In any case, there wasn't time. They had entered one last corridor, which broadened as they walked, and led into an abrupt change of atmosphere. They had reached the outside of a large octagon, the tower. You could only see 4 sides as you approached, of course, and one of these framed a door of brilliant green. It had no doorknob, but a panel of gold-colored translucent material. Brother Michael laid his right hand against this panel, and the door swung open. The octagonal room they entered was, by contrast with the outer drabness, gorgeous. It was plush, it strove for elegance, but it did not quite achieve it. The thick green carpet had come from a mail-order catalog. Good carpeting, better carpeting, our finest carpeting. Ellen's feet sank deep into it as they walked across the huge room to a shiny brass sliding door, an automatic elevator. They got off at the third floor. Somewhere above, Ellen realized, must be the tower room with all the bay windows. This room, however, had no windows at all. It had, rather, glass-walled cubicles off a center room into which they had stepped from the elevator. They entered one of these, and Ellen quickly learned she had been tricked. She should not have trusted Brother Michael. The instant they were both inside, he stepped quickly out and clicked the glass door shut behind her. There was no handle, no knob, nor any way to open it. She was trapped. She looked around her. 3 walls of the cubicle were glass, but a heavy, thick glass, not the kind you can break without a sledgehammer. The 4th was the stone wall of the tower itself. A wooden chair stood in the corner. Then she noticed the floor. It was woven of wire screen, like the playpen thing she had seen outside. The wire was shiny black, as heavy as a cattle fence, but much more closely knit. She watched Brother Michael through the glass. On the other side of the main room, he stood at a panel set with dials and knobs, like a very complicated radio. There was also an intercom. A speaker clicked on in the ceiling over her head, and she heard his voice. "Ellen?" "Yes." "I'm sorry to trick you, but I thought you might not want to go in if I told you." "What are you going to do?" "Nothing that hurts. You're going to have a treatment, like Genevieve. We want to get you in tune." "But I don't want to get in tune." "I know. That's why I tricked you." He flicked a switch on the panel, set 2 knobs, and turned another one, just a fraction. A needle on the white dial flickered a shade. From 0 to 1, she could not read the figures. She watched apprehensively. Would she feel something? She braced herself for an electric shock. "There's a chair," the speaker said in its tin voice, "if you want to sit down." She stood. Nothing happened. Nothing at all. Brother Michael put on a thing with earphones. A headset, turned the knobs a fraction farther, took the headset off again. The needle flickered again. Still nothing. His voice again. "There's a chair, if you want to sit down." Ellen remained standing, staring through the glass. This ritual, including the reminder about the chair, was repeated 5 times. The needle moved farther across the dial each time, like the speedometer of a car, spurting faster and faster until on the 5th try it moved all the way across. Ellen felt exactly as she had before, except that her apprehension was disappearing. She knew somehow that whatever Brother Michael was doing, it wasn't going to work. She watched him with calm eyes. She saw that he was sweating. There was a click, and a strange voice broke in on the intercom. "Brother Michael, may we assume that it is you?" Brother Michael's voice said. "Yes, sir. The king does not appreciate your draining the circuits during the exercise period. Already 3 subjects have strayed off the malignite paths." "I apologize, sir. I was treating a patient." "Surely not with Alpha Force 20? "Yes, sir." The patient shows no response. "No response? At Force 20? A pause. "Please repeat what you have just reported." "I have treated a patient with the standard angles 33 and 66 degrees, standard frequently 4,000 cycles at alpha forces from 1 to 20. The patient shows no reaction of any kind." A click, a longer pause, another click. "Is the patient male or female?" "Female. It's the girl who stowed away on the bus." "Please return her to her room and observe all precautions. The king will speak to her in person tomorrow morning." End of chapter 23.